legends, time for a bit of Jim Does SuperCoach, NFL SuperCoach show. That's right, we're wrapping up a wild Thanksgiving week 13. Looking forward to week 14, start of playoffs for some, I'll tell ya. Jeez. Anyway, what a week it was. As we all expected, a defense and special teams top scored in SuperCoach. Sure. Well, along with AJ Brown, which is actually legitimately crazy. So good job by the Seahawks defense, special teams, and AJ Brown. Sure. Anyway, this was like a bit of an odd week, right, this week, I think, with a lot of the sort of the shared player universe of SuperCoach Classic means that if a couple of the big guns that a lot of folks have in their teams don't fire, we all have sort of slightly depressed scores. I think I had, 611 last week, managed 466 this week, which ranked top 5%. But still, it also meant that I moved down just a little bit, a slick 6 spots overall to 79th in NFL SuperCoach. So that was fine-ish. It could have been worse. There was a couple of other ones that you're just like, geez. Lots, to do with the Rams defense, breaking my heart. I'll talk about that in a second. Anyway, but the week 13 average score was 368, which tells you the bottom half of SuperCoach, where people are just not paying attention, not doing great. Because the top 5% and the top 10% averages were very, very close. Top 5% was 495. Top 10% was 477. So it's like a very, very strange mix of looking at where these teams are sort of slotting in. And like the averages are obviously at the pointy end of this competition. People are really engaged. At the bottom end, not so much. So this is where pods are going to make a real big difference, I reckon, down the stretch. So keep an eye on them. Jim, who are your pods? We'll get to that later. Anyway, trades this week. I brought in Shedeur Sanders and the Rams defense special teams thinking they'd go bang against the Carolina Panthers. Spoiler alert, they did not. Jeez, that was brutal. A bit of a bust. Not happy with that one, but, you get that on the big jobs, especially SuperCoach. Not everything works out. Would have been better starting the Patriots defense against the Giants. They managed 22 points. But I think there's also a lot of other folks out there as well who have like maybe Tyler Loop starting in place of Brandon Aubrey, or Aubrey on the bench or something like that. And Aubrey went off, etc. too. So, I mean, for me, I had on the bench Kimani Vidal and RJ Harvey, who both went off. So, a bit of a tough one. Anyway, the best performers from the week, as we've been doing the last little bit, we're just going to run through basically across the league who did well this week. Was AJ Brown and the Seattle Seahawks defense special teams on 60. As your top scorers at 58, we had Mahomes, sure. Which is pretty crazy considering the game wasn't that great for the Chiefs. 55 for Bijan. He had a pretty good game despite just a horrible, horrible loss in the end. He was still very, very solid. Rashee Rice. Now, we jumped on Rashee last week. We're talking about him, pretty extensively. And he's owned by 17% of coaches now. He had 50, looked awesome. That is a nice little POD, I reckon. Jordan Love was your 6th overall scorer with 50 as well. Dontavian Wicks, he caught all those Jordan Love throws. He had 49. Marcus Mariota. If you listen to that broadcast, that was weird how they kept saying Marcus Mariota's name. Mariota. Okay. He had 48. So did Evan McPherson, the kicker for the Cincinnati Bengals. Sure. And Jameson Williams finally popped off with 46 because Amon-Ra St. Brown went down with an ankle injury and left that game early, copping and did not play. Which is one of those handy things in SuperCoach sometimes where if they play but don't score and they're knocked out with an injury, they get a DNP. Outside of that, the sort of big sort of bolters, you had Bryce Young with 44 as well, Dak with 43, Trevor Lawrence 43, all the sort of classic QB stuff. Brock Bowers went off for a couple of touchdowns and 40. Good to see that. CD Lamb with 41. A.D. Mitchell was pretty good for the Jets out of absolutely nowhere. Rips off a 40. Kimani Vidal has 40. Swift has 40 for the Bears as well. They were running over absolutely everybody in that Eagles game. The biggest flops were probably Zay Flowers at -1. That's not great. He's on 12% of teams. The Rams defense, as I mentioned, 2 points. Breaking my heart against Carolina. Justin Jefferson managed 2 points. Yeesh. Yeah. The Max Brosma start was not a great one for the Minnesota Vikings. Roman Dunze managed 3 points as well. Tyler Loop, as I mentioned just before, 4 points. Jackson Smith and Jigba only had 6. And that's the thing, when Jackson Smith and Jigba is on, like, you know, a lot of teams, he and Jonathan Taylor, these sorts of players not going absolutely massive, really sort of puts a bit of a cap on some of these big scores. JSN's on 39.6% of teams, and 6 points broke your heart. Saquon had 11 points. Egbuka had 12. Lamar struggling again, 14 points. Even Jahmyr Gibbs, I think, only got to 19, I want to say. And Travion Henderson managed 19 as well, after another 19 the week prior and a couple of weeks prior to that. So at this point of the season, there's not a giant amount of cash cows, obviously. What we're sort of more looking for is those trade down targets. We had Michael Wilson last week. In terms of and like Shadur is obviously a really good one just to free up that cash from JJ McCarthy. And I mean, Jackson Dart now goes on a bye. He's missed 1 week, comes back. Wasn't bad against the Pats, but still. The other break-evens that we're looking at this week, Dontavian Wicks is only 5.8 mil, obviously a favorite target of Jordan Love. The tough part with Green Bay is that they just really share the passing, like, volume, right? Wicks, Dobbs, like, it'll be Watson the next week, and it's really hard to sort of go, right, who's going to boom or bust for you this week? The Packers receiving room is just, it's a stay away for me. AJ Brown's a minus 22 this week with his break-even. He's at 15 mil anyway, so you don't need to bother with that unless you've already got him. AD Mitchell for the Jets. He's priced at 5.2 mil. He's got a break-even of minus 20. Not a bad one because, look, the Jets are just going to keep playing out this schneid, right? Because Aaron Glenn doesn't care if they win and what it means to their draft position. Outside of that, you had Valet for the wide receiver for the Saints. He's got a minus 17. Sean Tucker didn't play this week. Still got a break even of minus 16 because Bucky Irving came back and was really, really good. And in other ones out there, really, there's like Shadur's got the break even of minus 16. He had 20 last week. So if you don't have him in, he's at 5 mil. If he's okay this week against Tennessee, he could take a big jump up in terms of price, and that'll help. But that's roughly about it in terms of like the actual sort of the players who got out there last week. Jacoby Myers is probably one of the other ones. He's got a break even of minus 10 on the Jags. They play Indy this week. They don't really have too many other options outside of Myers, so he's an interesting one to keep an eye on. Hunter Henry's at minus 10 for your tight ends, but he's already priced at 9.4 mil. So the cash cows are drying up, obviously. That's what happens towards the end of a SuperCoach season. Very simple. And you're sort of just looking at those ones going, right, am I trying to free up cash? Am I side swapping? And I think depending on the amount of trades you've got left, you can, this is the sort of point where you're like trading up, one up, one down is pretty difficult. Just because the production of the ones that you're trading down to is probably not going to match the stuff that you're probably going to need in the next 4 weeks. Because there's only we're in week 14. We only go to week 18. So this is playoffs. You need your best team on the actual field, obviously. So what are we doing? Well, trades this week. What am I looking at? Very simple. I've got one basically big decision to make, right? I've got 4 remaining trades. And this is actually sort of because of buys. So we've got 4 teams on buy this week. We've got the Patriots, my beloved Pats, the Carolina Panthers, the New York Footballing Giants, and the San Francisco 49ers. So the Niners, that means we don't have CMC. It means we don't have George Kittle. If you're out there rolling with Brock Purdy, good on you. But, I mean, even their wide receiver room where Juwan Jennings just keeps getting hit in the junk, it's basically CMC and it's Kittle. That's a tough one. The Pats, that's Drake May. It's Trevion Henderson. If you've got Diggs, if you've got any other, like the Pats, obviously Andy Borregales and their defense special teams are big ownership numbers in terms of SuperCoach because they're popular and they were cheap to start the season. Panthers, Bryce Young has been solid. Their running backs have been solid. Ted McMillan, a lot of us still have him on our teams. He's out this week as well. And the Giants, that's obviously Jackson Dart. Probably not too many people have Singletary or Tyron Tracy, but it means that there's a couple of holes we're going to fill, but this is the last of the buys, right? So my big question is, do I side trade Drake May this week to keep up appearances, or do I just roll the dice and get Shadur on field? And if he sucks, that's in my flex spot. Maybe that score rolls off anyway, and I don't burn one of my 4 remaining trades, side swapping Drake May to Jalen Hurts or somebody. So that's where I'm at with my trades. But what do we usually do here on Jim Does SuperCoach? We look at the schedule. So your trades, if you have to make any, you want to make the smart trade. You want to be out there going, well, this guy's got a good matchup, so I'll get him in or I'll side swap to them. Off we go. The big one, obviously, on Friday is Detroit versus Dallas. This is a playoff game for both these teams. You know they'll be going hammer and tongs. Dak's been fantastic the last couple of weeks. I reckon literally as soon as I traded out Dak, he went, wait a minute, I'll be good again. It's the classic SuperCoach conundrum. But anyway, Detroit-Dallas, you've got Jahmyr Gibbs on one side, this much improved Dallas run defense over the last 3 weeks since the trade deadline. They got Quinn and Williams in. They look great again. How about them Cowboys? That's right. So Gibbs, Montgomery, who knows there, but losing Amon-Ra St. Brown, he's still doubtful for this week. That means Jameson Williams becomes a lot more valuable. Maybe Tesla as well. If you're looking for a downgrade target, Tesla's not a bad idea because if Amon-Ra's no good, he suddenly moves up the depth chart. But at the same time, Dallas's defense, like the improvement has been obvious. I still reckon Gibbs could have a pretty big game. Like Detroit, they're going to throw the absolute kitchen sink at this game because they have to. If they lose this game, they might miss the playoffs completely. So on the flip side, Dallas have got CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens in great form, Dak's playing out of his skin, Javonte Williams is really good. If you've got any of these players, Dallas, Detroit, you should be laughing. We're starting them. We're going hammer and tongs with Dallas, Detroit. I'm just saying that should be a massively fun game. I'll probably throw the VC on Gibbs just because I think if he rips off one or two massive ones, he can have a huge, huge game against this Dallas team. They are at home. They're going to need him to go off too to actually win. The other ones are like Buffalo versus Cincy. So I'll probably throw the C for me this week on Josh Allen as well because Cincinnati, their defense has been pretty good the last 2 weeks. Maybe it's a little bit smoke and mirrors. Buffalo is always a little bit sketchy, but at the same time, they've got I think James Cook and Josh Allen are prime for a big one at home against this Bengals team that's looking to play spoiler. The Bills sort of got back on track this week. I really like Cook. I really like Josh Allen. I'll probably throw the C on Josh Allen this week because that Cincinnati defense has looked good for 2 weeks. It could absolutely fall apart on the road in Buffalo this week. Joe Burrow's back. So look, Jamar Chase is starting on your team. If you've got him, you're starting him. If T. Higgins comes back, you probably start him as well. Chase Brown, keep an eye on him as well. He's a handy running back. And keep an eye on Joe Burrow. So in terms of prices and for quarterbacks, obviously a lot of his value is built into the throwing. So it's a little bit tricky sometimes with the SuperCoach, but still, he's very, very, very good. Despite missing a couple of months. The other big matchups, Denver versus the Raiders. Love that matchup if you've got any of your Denver players. I'm probably going to start RJ Harvey in place of CMC, who's on the bye, ahead of Kamani Vidal. Vidal was really good last week, and they'll need him to be awesome this week. But they're playing the Eagles, who you can run on. We've seen the last couple of weeks. But it feels like if Justin Herbert, who's got a broken left hand, they'll be like, all right, Kamani Vidal, do it again. And the Eagles will probably be keyed in on that, just saying. So I might start RJ Harvey against the Raiders. Bo Nix is actually not a bad quarterback option as well. He's got a pretty high ceiling when he gets going. But he also just can get a bit scrubber. So I don't know. But still, Denver versus the Raiders, you love that. Genty and Bowers, probably fade them a little bit. The big question, I guess, there for me is I've got Bowers and I've got Tyler Warren. I've sat Tyler Warren. Bowers went off this week. Can he do it again? It's going to be a tough one against this Denver team. But I probably trust Bowers because he just catches everything Geno throws at him. Miami versus the Jets. Love this one for Achane. He's been absolutely unreal. He was really good this week too. And I think the Jets, look, their defense, their special teams has been very, very solid, but I think Miami just have gotten into a little bit of a groove. Achane's a good one. Waddle's a good one. Flip side for the Jets, look, Breece Hall, he's been up and down. It's like absolutely the Breece Hall roller coaster. If you want to roll with him again, sure. AD Mitchell, maybe. Miami don't really scare me. So AD is not a bad trade down target if you want to grab him on the cheap and sort of see how he goes. I don't know if I'd be starting him though. Seattle versus Atlanta is another fascinating matchup, right? You've got this Seattle defense that just tore apart the Vikings. Now they go to Atlanta and take on Kirk Cousins. Will the Falcons do the smart thing and just go, hey, Bijan, here's the ball the entire time? Or will Seattle's defense go, oh, here's another couple of interceptions on Kirk Cousins? I reckon probably the latter. Cousins is more cooked than one of my old man Snags. So JSN versus Atlanta secondary is the other big one too, right? So JSN after a 6-point week, I think they'll keep feeding him. I think he'll be fine. Atlanta's secondary did a pretty good job against the Pats a few weeks ago. They've just been very up and down though, so I don't trust them at all. I'm pretty okay with still JSN out there. Rams, Arizona's another good one too. Puka Nacua, he's on the cheap now. So if you don't have him in your team, get him in. Arizona, that's a team that's just given up the ghost. They are still competitive in these games. They come off a pretty tough loss to Tampa Bay. They let Bucky Irving sort of go off the hook. Kyron Williams is a good one. Puka's a good one. Devontae Adams just keeps catching touchdowns. I love most of the Rams on this one, to the point where I'll probably also start the Rams defense. Jacoby Brissett, look, the wheels are sort of slightly wobbling there in Arizona, so it wouldn't surprise me if the Rams defense just really get after him. Because like this is in Arizona, it's indoors, it's just down the road from LA, off they go. McBride, Rams have allowed only 5 touchdowns to tight ends all season. 2 of them, I think, were George Kittle. I think McBride will still be fine. He is literally just like the go-to break in case of emergency for Brissett. Marvin Harrison Jr. came back and was pretty good this week too, so which obviously depressed our man Michael Wilson. But anyway, Rams, big thumbs up on both sides. Chicago, Green Bay, that's one I wanted to flag as like I'm kind of steering a little bit clear. It's really hard to get a hold on how good this Bears team is or isn't, right? Rome Odunze has like a couple of down weeks, looks horrible. They're running the ball amazingly. So Monongai and DeAndre Swift looked incredible. Outside of that, it's a bit touch and go. So bit of a strange one. And then the other side, Green Bay, as I say, it's like spin the roulette wheel, and that's the wide receiver who's going to have the big day with Jordan Love. At home, I still think Green Bay will be pretty good. Josh Jacobs had a slow week. Chicago's run D has been pretty good. So I don't know. I'm just like a little bit tentative on that game. The other ones that I'm still tentative on, KC Houston. Mahomes will still be good because that's just what he does. Houston, that's a tough matchup. I mean, for KC, Rashee Rice up against Devin Singletary and stuff. Bit of a rough one. And on the flip side, Nico Collins, though, Woody Marks as well for the Texans. They should be okay. KC's defense hasn't been at all that imposing the last couple of weeks. So I'm okay with the Houston guys. The KC ones are a little bit more iffy. They've got no running backs anyway. Mahomes should be okay, but Houston will make them work for every little bit. And the other one's Chargers Philly, which is a really tough one. I like Philly in this game with the Chargers banged up. Juzzy Herbs with a broken hand. Camanio Vidal, though, is still a solid look. I just don't like him as much as maybe RJ Harvey coming off my bench starting. Versus Jalen Hurts, I think he could probably have a half-decent game. He threw a pick last week. He doesn't do that very often. I think he'll have a solid game. They'll be in LA. I think Philly will be okay. I think the panic station's absolutely freaking out by all the Eagles fans is a little bit overblown. I think they'll be all right, but yeah, not great. And the other one to keep an eye on is Cleveland's defense against Tennessee. They should run roughshod over the top of them, especially at home. Indy Jacksonville's a bit of a weird one too, right? Indy haven't won in Jacksonville since 2014. JT's had a half-decent game against them before. Tyler Warren, I think they'll both be solid. But yeah, I don't know if I'd be throwing the C on Jonathan Taylor. That's the sort of big one. So the trade-in candidates this week, if you don't have a bunch of the Rams, I've got Puka. I'm feeling okay about that. I think he'll be really good this week. Devontae Adams, Kyron Williams, I think they'll be pretty good. Achane, obviously, for the Miami Dolphins. J-Mo Williams, looking pretty good for the Lions. Bucky Irving, back for the Bucks. He could make a bit of a run at it's actual top 5 running back over the last 4 weeks of the season, so keep an eye on Bucky too. The trade outs, Amon Ra, just keep an eye on his injury update. Saquon, looking very, very rough. If you've still got him in your team, there's probably better options. Justin Jefferson, same sort of vibe. He's sitting on my bench. I don't know what to do with him. It's like, can we upgrade? Is it worth it? I don't know for the minute, so I'll just sort of keep him there sat. I'd trade him out if I had more trades. So my trades, look, switching out Drake May for Jalen Hurts this week is probably option number 1. Option number 2 is rolling with Shadur Sanders up against the Titans, just hoping that he can sort of do enough, which he might. He might be able to scamper for 30 yards. He could run one in for a touchdown himself. If he throws for 150 yards and a touchdown or 2, he'd be looking pretty good, and then I don't burn a trade. So I'm kind of maybe leaning towards that, but for the minute, May to Jalen Hurts is probably what I'm looking at. Captains, I mean, if you've got Achane, I'd throw a VC on them. JSN's not a bad look either. But I'm probably going to go with Gibbs on Friday up against Dallas, and then probably go into Josh Allen as my captain. So they're probably my favorite looks for the minute, because I think when you look at the horrible defenses out there, like Denver probably don't have someone you're going to throw the C on. Buffalo up against that Cincinnati defense is probably the one that I'm going to back the most. So it could be Cook, it could be Allen, I don't know. But I'm probably going to go Josh Allen because I don't have James Cook. Baltimore, Pittsburgh, I still want no bar of Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, maybe against Pittsburgh, but yeah. And Atlanta, Seattle, like JSN up against the Atlanta secondary, I'm just not entirely sure on that one. And Bijan against Seattle's defense, he'll be fine. I don't think he's going to go bang. Jonathan Taylor, same sort of vibe. So Gibbs VC for me, Allen captain. And there you go. Week 13. Bang, he says. Hope you did all right. It's getting pretty awesome towards the end of this NFL SuperCoach season. I'm loving every second of it. So hopefully you're up there in the pointy end of the standings as well. And hopefully you're making the playoffs. So there we go. That's the Week 14 preview, the Week 13 wrap of Jim Does SuperCoach. Get around us on all the socials, of course. Get us on NFL Straya, NBA Straya for everything else that you need to know about. Jump on Twitter, IG, YouTube, TikTok, Facey, all that sort of stuff. And that's it. Jim Does SuperCoach for Week 13 NFL SuperCoach. Here's to a big Week 14. Happy SuperCoaching.